Aimee Carlson. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here, Rich.
Absolutely. I truly appreciate you coming on, being willing to share your story with the creative community. Um, I believe there's going to be a lot of golden nuggets throughout this story.
I think you're great with conversation, so I'm excited to see where this goes.
Excellent. Let me give the audience a brief introduction here for you so they kind of get a feel for who you are and what you're all about. You are the founder and CEO of SheForce, a vibrant community and coaching movement empowering women in midlife and beyond to embrace their second adulthood with energy, confidence, and unapologetic vibrancy through holistic health, mindset, and creativity. You're the creator and host of the SheForce podcast, where you offer insightful conversations, creative inspiration, human potential storytelling, and practical wellness tips to a community striving to thrive, not just survive. You're the developer of two signature coaching programs, the Infinite Energy Suite, which is a deeply personalized one-on-one coaching experience tailored to midlife women seeking vitality, clarity, and legacy-driven leadership, and the Next Level Mastermind, which is a high-impact group environment for visionary women aiming to scale sustainability with support and accountability. You also have a holistic mind body approach where you weave together mindfulness, mindset, creativity, performance psychology, regenerative leadership, and archetypal strategies to help clients align energetically with leadership and purpose so that you can achieve results that stick without burnout. You're also a community centered visionary. You're passionately focused on rewriting the narrative of aging. You spark transformation by crafting the inclusive home for women to heal, rise, and lead, championing self discovery, mutual support, and radical flourishing in all stages of life. Beautiful mission.
Mm, thank you.
Beautiful mission. So, we're going to start off, as I always do, with my only scripted question, which is where were you born and what was life like as a kid for Aimee?
Mm, that's a fun way to start off. I love that you start that. Um, I was thinking about this the other day because, I live in Montana now, landlocked, but I was born by the ocean.
Okay.
So I was born out near Seattle, Washington.
Hmm.
Um, and life as a kid. I was describing this to my boys the other day, who are now in their 20s. You know, growing up in Montana, there was I had a lot of space and a lot of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that most memorable about growing up is like the feeling of being on a bike. I rode my bike a lot. We didn't have helmets back then, wind going through your hair, such a feeling of freedom. And we lived in a neighborhood, like we were one of the first houses in this subdivision. So I just remember like I got to play in the dirt a lot when they'd be digging out foundations for the next home. Like we'd go play in that. There was just a lot of there's a lot of dirt.
Right.
And
Right.
there's a lot of space for imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. With you being born in Seattle, um, or out in Washington State,
Yeah.
um, what type of work did your mom and dad do at that point in time?
Yeah. So I'm not for sure if so my parents weren't married very long.
Okay.
So like at that point in time, I think what my dad did, like most of his life, he was a truck driver.
Got you.
And I think that's what he was doing then. And my mom had worked in an office until she had me, and then she was a stay-at-home mom for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. But right at
Okay.
that point in time, that's what was going on with them.
Gotcha. And you mentioned you had some siblings.
Yeah.
How do you fit in that order?
Yeah. So I'm the oldest. So like my mom and dad were married just a couple years. And then when my mom got remarried, then she had another child. And so I have a younger brother. And then my dad got remarried like 20 years later. And so I have then a much younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Um, with moving from Seattle to Montana, was that a drastic change for you in terms of environments, or were you not old enough at that point to really know what the difference was?
I think this is a fascinating, I'm curious about this whole thing because I don't seem to have memory of it,
Okay.
but um, I feel something by the water. So it makes me wonder, like where we're born, and even if we're not there very long, if there's something that stays with us.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Def-
Yeah.
are you a water sign astrologically?
I'm an earth sign.
Okay, same here. I'm
Oh,
Capricorn.
okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm Capricorn also.
Oh wow. Okay,
Yeah. Cool.
makes a lot of sense. So even from that perspective, we're goat fish, so we can go to the highest heights or the deepest depths
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
life. So that makes sense for sure that you would have a connection to water in some way.
Yeah. I love how you put that too. And I'm just kind of getting into astrology now. And I just looked at my chart from like the element point of view.
Yeah.
And I have the same number of earth in my chart as I do water. And those
Oh
are
wow.
the two highest,
Maine.
the
Yeah.
two main. Yeah. So I love that you just like made that connection too.
Yeah. I have five earth, three water, one air, one fire.
Okay.
So I'm definitely a Capricorn in terms of the elements.
Yeah, yep. Strong on the earth side.
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so. How about grandparents? Did your grandparents have much of a role in your life as a kid?
Mm. That's a fun question too, because I've pondered this a lot. Both of my grandfathers died before I was born.
Mm,
And there are times when I'm just so curious about them since I didn't get to meet them.
yeah.
And they've shown up in my sometimes when I do a meditation or different things like I can feel their influence, but I
Yeah.
never got to meet them. But my grandmothers, both of my grandmothers lived into their 80s, and they um, were both, I definitely had influence from them. So my dad's mom was out in the Seattle area, and so I didn't see her as much,
Okay.
but she was impactful because she was really the bridge between once my parents divorced, like I didn't see my dad a whole lot,
Yeah.
but his mother really did try to keep connected. And but then my mom's mom was m closer in proximity, and so I got to be around her more. And she was very influential. She was an artist.
Okay.
And then after her, my grandfather died, then she later married an artist too. And so I got to be around that a lot. And one thing about my grandmother not just being an artist, but she was so memorable in the way of she would wear these really cool hats. She had a hat. She would wear a hat every day. And she would dress from head to toe in one color. So that was
Oh,
also very striking. And she made her own clothes. And so, like, some days you would see her and she'd be in purple from head to toe. Um, I I just love that about her character. So I feel like I was highly influenced from the art and the color and the creativity from
yeah,
her in particular.
that's fascinating. Very fascinating. Also, too, one of the things that I've seen across a few episodes is the fact that um, that generation had a way of doing things in terms of making sure they had what they need out of necessity by either making their own foods, canning, making their own clothes, sewing, depending on what the income level was or where they were at that stage and point in time. But it was always fascinating as well that the grandparents have quite a bit of influence on lot of the guests that I've had on. So it's an interesting thing that I see play out across storylines.
Oh, it's
With
fun.
being in elementary school, were you one of the kids that were a little bit more outgoing, or were you more of the type that wanted to just sit towards the back and not be seen, not be heard?
Kind of a combination. So we
Okay.
moved a lot. So in elementary school, there for a while, every year I was in a different school.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a part of me that got to learn how to, if I wanted to meet new people, I needed to be outgoing.
Yeah.
And so that's why sometimes I'm not exactly sure if, not that we have to be one or the other, like an introvert or an extrovert, but I kind of weave between those. And I wonder if some of that was that I had to develop that when I was younger, but maybe that's not my natural. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but um, so in that, when I think back to little Amy, when I kind of visualize some of those scenarios, I was an observer. I really like to observe. Um, and I had like big bushy curly hair that really
Okay.
it couldn't be managed.
Okay.
So I that kind of stood out and I got made fun of a lot for my hair. And so I did have this sort of feeling, you know how kids do, they take it on like,
Yeah.
oh, like I was somewhat of an outcast. Um, at that point in time too, like some of the places I lived, not many kids' parents had been divorced. So that was also kind of a, you know,
Right.
something that set me apart a bit. And so there's like when I think of myself at those ages, there there's some things about myself that I was like I feel like there was leadership there, but um because of circumstances too, I just I really often took the observer role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That being picked on at that age too, just for whatever reasons, because they really never make any sense to me,
Yeah.
other than somebody just having an experience to where that's the only thing that kind of makes them feel good at that point in time is trying to demean somebody else, when in probably all reality they're the ones who are feeling
Yeah.
that obscure way. Um, but I can see how that would play into, you know, trying to navigate between being a leader and or trying to engage each time that you moved into a new school versus getting picked on or picked out, um, for differences, and then having to sit back and try and not have that done. It's it's definitely a dichotomy that is a fine walk that us as kids have to navigate. Um,
Yeah.
I know I have a similar scenario with that, um, and that I had the ability to make some friends, but I also got picked on by other kids, which it never made sense to me because I never saw really a whole lot of difference
Yeah.
between the people that were picking on me and the friends that I had. Sometimes they kind of overlapped in a way,
Yeah.
and even that was more strange than a feeling of being normal to me. But I was also the observer. I was super shy, super quiet. Um, Although if I was in with the rest of the crowd laughing or doing whatever, for some reason I ended up getting singled out a lot of times by the teachers. So I was like, wait, I don't understand what's
Yeah.
happening. Uh,
Yeah.
with having that uh, mindset of knowing I can make friends if I'm acting this way, but I always also too don't necessarily want to stand out as much each time you're navigating to a new school. Did you get to a place and finally settle into potentially one school to where it became a little bit easier?
Yeah. Yeah. When I got into like I did high school all in one school,
Okay.
which was and then it kind of settled into that. And then yeah, it's kind of interesting now that you bring that up, that that was a point in time where I like tried out getting in a school play and
Okay.
turned out I loved that. And was able to get into a sport that I really liked, which then I just continued to I liked long distance running, so I just
Oh, cool.
kept going even after high school, not competitively, but just like as a, you know, uh,
Practice.
yeah, yeah. So I think now that you mention it, I think that's maybe why I got to settle in and try some of those things is because we weren't moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For sure. Did you have any teachers that you can remember that maybe just recognized something special within you and
Yeah.
tried to nurture that and encourage that?
Yeah. Um, I remember probably my most memorable year of school was fifth grade,
Okay.
and I had a teacher who she was super creative, and we would like during the middle of math class or history or something, all of a sudden she would do these creative dramatics, and all of a sudden she'd set this scenario like, okay, um, you're in a lion's den and the lions are sleeping and we'd all go like whatever, we'd crawl under our desks or whatever the scenario was. I mean, it was so much fun. She would just out of the blue, she'd say this.
Yeah.
And then she happened to have a great uh, student teacher that year, and
Okay.
he was super fun. You know, not many male teachers that I got to experience in elementary school. And he was a cool guy and a lot of fun. They worked really well together. And just that year was so much fun. And I actually wrote a play that year,
Oh,
and
wow.
she let me like perform it. Like, okay, choose the cast and you guys can practice and then you can show it to the class. And it
Right.
was it was a really and that's why it was so memorable to me. It was so creative. It was so different from
Yeah.
any other year of school.
That's fascinating. The What sparked that idea to write a play at that age?
I think it was being involved in those creative dramatics that she would I mean, I hadn't
Out of the blue,
experienced
come out with.
anything like that before.
Yeah.
And I think it was also like that there was such a like this is okay. Like this can be part of life. Like this can be woven into everything. So I think I started to get permission
Right.
and just try it out.
Okay. Okay. When you moved into high school, um, I'm going to guess that that fifth grade year carried over into you wanting to try out for plays and theatrical events.
Yeah.
Did you find that environment to be super accepting and comforting to be in, to be able to create and take on different identities?
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it. Again, a really good teacher. Like it was my humanities teacher who that also did the um, put on the plays, and I really liked him. He was fun and funny. And then I got to like one year, one of the plays I was in, I got to be a main character, and I chose to have a an accent.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that was such a blast.
Yeah. Theatrical uh, experiences are definitely um, allow individuals to be able to highlight different characters. And it's interesting watching them take on that character and embody that character as to what they think that he's supposed to be or she's supposed to be. Um, it's always fascinating from my perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
As the long distance running came into play for you, was that early on in high school or was it towards the later years of high school?
Yeah, it was when I left eighth grade. So I'd done track that year and tried the long distance and enjoyed it. I honestly don't know if I really enjoyed it or if I just found an outlet for my emotions.
Okay.
Um, I always said I enjoyed it, but I'm not exactly sure. But I know that it helped me process emotions. And so I just, after track ended that year, I just kept running. Year round. And then, so from age 14 to then like 33, I just ran. I was a runner.
Yeah.
And it really did help me process a lot. There was a lot that I couldn't make sense of. Um, and I've always been like a just looking for meaning in things, looking for answers, like kind of a deep thinker, lots of questions.
Yeah.
And so it helped me process that, helped me process emotions. Um, and then I also I don't think I knew right away, but later I was like, oh, I think there's also a connection too. I'm kind of a kinesthetic learner. I when I can move my body while I'm learning something or speaking or whatever, it helps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely understand that. The Did you feel as a kid that you were highly sensitive to different things around you?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, you too?
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. I've always been a seeker, always been looking for meaning, wanting to know why. Uh, I can remember all the way back being at least 3 or 4 years old and wondering why I was in such a small body. It didn't make any sense to me because in my mind, I felt like I was an adult,
Yeah.
which is bizarre in and of itself. But yeah, I always wondered, like, why am I so small? I don't understand this. Why am I, why am I not on the same level as what my parents are at that point in time? So it was always uh, a bit confusing And then also too being super sensitive, like loud noises would scare me, would shock me. Um, Getting talked at sternly, I always felt like I was being yelled at.
Hmm.
So I was super sensitive to that. Um, Another thing too about me is that as a kid, I could see spirits. So from that perspective as well, I didn't understand what that was because I didn't have words for it, and it wasn't something I felt I could share with my parents at that point in time. Um, and the spirits that would come and visit me, it was almost like a mini family. It felt like a male and a female, and then two younger male and female. So it was like a father and a daughter, or a married relation, something like that. The
Yeah.
dynamic was kind of like that. And then there was the two kids. I always felt good energy from what would seem to be the female adult. And then the two little ones always wanted to try and interact with me. Um, but the male figure was always an energy that made me scared.
Mm.
And I could always sense when they were about to arrive
Oh, really?
because I felt that energy from him that immediately put me into panic mode. It was
Mm.
like, oh no, here he comes again.
Yeah.
And they all came together always, but I always got that energy from him, or that male figure. Um, but the others didn't give any of that bad energy. And it was interesting from my perspective because I I was always like trying to not pay attention to them in a way. Like I would kind
Yeah.
of cower down, not really look at the corner of my eye. And the female and the two little ones were always trying to interact and engage and be kind, but I always felt this like almost anger that was there in this male figure, and I was just always scared of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where I was uh, picking up certain things about your possibility of being super sensitive early on. Um, Also, too, did you feel that some of the dynamic between your mother and father, and then them separating and becoming into new relationships, did that seem to confuse you as well in terms of what the dynamics were there, how that was taking place?
There's a lot that I don't remember like from those early ages. So I don't have really any memory of them actually being together.
Okay.
My parents, um, and my stepdad, like he's just been around the majority of my life. But I do think like part of the the thread or part of the story that I've lived out.
Yeah.
And then now I realize, well, okay, I can change the way I view that story going forward too. But I do know early on it really played a part in how I saw myself, that I was kind of like just on my own. So although I had siblings come in later in my life,
Yeah.
that there was something just about like which really probably kind of led to some of the independence that I've had and felt, was that yes, there were these people in my life, but there was, in this situation, I was on my own. Like, not that I wasn't being raised, but just as far as there weren't any other siblings around, at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that too. my parents were both married before they got married to each other.
Okay.
So from my dad, I have an older half sister, which I've just always considered her my sister. I never really thought of her as being a half sister. Um, and she was 7 years older than I was. So once my parents got married, and both sides of my family is from East Tennessee.
Okay.
So during, vacations, holidays, and stuff, we'd always go back there. But when my mom and dad got married, they came up here to Michigan, where I'm at currently, because of the auto industry. My dad was a mechanic. So it was easy to get work by coming up here.
Yeah.
And he had a younger brother who had come up here as well because their sister, one of their sisters, and her husband were stationed at Air National Guard base here where we're at. So it was kind of like they had some family here to be able to make that move. And then when they came up here, I was born. And then up until 9, I was the lone kid, basically. So also, too, I was alone trying to figure things out, navigating where I was
Yeah.
at. Even in school, trying to navigate that as the lone child. But then at 9, my parents decided to try and have another kid. So they did. They had my little sister. So there's 9 years difference between us.
Yeah.
So from my little sister to my older sister, there's 16 years. So that's a little bit of a different dichotomy in terms of being together. I was never around my older sister unless we would be in Tennessee. Then my dad would get her for visitation. So I get to spend time with her then. But otherwise, I didn't have that opportunity, growing up to be really, really close with her. Although I always felt that way when I was with her, that we had this closeness. But again, always having to come back and leave, it was just like, oh man, like that was a friend that I didn't really have to work at
Yeah.
to have. Um, with the high school scenario where you start to feel and slip into a bit of a comfort zone of having a regular, consistent environment for that. Were you able to experience any other forms of creativity? Maybe something like what your grandmother was doing?
Yeah. So the art teacher that I had in high school, um, he was fantastic. And I didn't know that I liked art so much. So I took art and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really fun. And, started off with pencil drawings and absolutely loved creating that whole grayscale
Yeah.
from the lightest light to the darkest dark with one tool.
Yep.
I mean, it's fascinating to me. And at that point in time, I kind of thought I was going to be a fashion designer.
Oh, cool.
So I would get some of these, he had some of these magazines that had like a lot of black and white photographs in them.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were like, you know, like at that point in time, uh, the company Guess,
Yeah.
and they would have these cool black and white photos. And so I would like do replicas of some of those. And man, I just loved it. And so I took art all through high school.
Okay.
Um, and then, yeah, so those were probably my favorite things in high school was, running and being in school plays. And I also did drama. I did pantomime
Okay.
and then art. Like those were my totally favorite things um, in those days.
Yeah. Those guest ads were phenomenal
Yeah.
at that point in time. I remember at the height of guesses, uh, being a corporation, I would say they probably had the most iconic um, advertising campaigns.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the people were beautiful. The way that the photography was done was amazing. The contrast within that only black and white scenario was so drawing and appealing. Um, I've loved fashion forever as well too. So I was that's always been a thing in my head where I've tried to do it here and there. Didn't always pan out in a full range of uh, sustainability, but I've dabbled with it for
Yeah.
most of my career as well.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, with the environment being a little bit more consistent, were you able to pick up some friends at that point in time in high school that were truly became friends that you engaged with?
Yeah. Um, I did. One in particular. I also found that some friendships were fickle.
Yeah,
I hadn't learned that before because we moved so often. I didn't realize that that was a thing. That I just thought that your friends came and went because you moved. I
right.
didn't know that like all this other drama could happen. But I did find out like when I didn't go out for basketball that some of those people who said they were my friends, then since I wasn't on the basketball team, then all of a sudden they weren't friends. And I was like, oh, well, that's weird.
Really? Yeah.
Um, but I did have one consistent friend that was, well, a couple, but like that we could just kind of get through that goofy, awkward time together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did were there any other sports that you may have been interested in? Because I'm guessing if you they wanted you to play basketball, you had a little bit of height.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, so I'm 5'8", and I've been 5'8" since I was like 14, like I just didn't grow anymore after that. So I played basketball through middle school, but then I didn't want to do it after that. But
Yeah,
I did try out like this will date me, but um and tell you how rural we lived. But so we got volleyball, girls volleyball when I was in high school. It started up at my school. And so I tried it out and I loved it. Um, but my mom would only let me be in one sport. So
uh,
so I chose the running. Um, but I did after I saw Flashdance, here we go, this is dating me too. Um, I wanted to try out dance. So my parents let me try a dance class. And so I did a little bit of jazz dance, and that was pretty fun.
oh, cool,
Yeah.
very cool. The yeah, that was a big movie for the dance world at that point in time.
Yeah.
Um, as you're getting towards the end of high school and you're experiencing all these creative things as well as some athletic things, are you starting to think about where you may want to go after that in terms of possibly pursuing art or pursuing the athletic side of things? What was the thought process there?
Yeah. I think okay, so I'd always been drawn to teaching ever since I was a little kid. Um, I really enjoyed teaching. Um, so I kind of thought that that's a direction I was going. And then I thought about like art teaching. And so when I did leave high school, the one thing I knew is that I was going to try to get a little further away from just to be away, to spread my wings a little bit.
Yeah.
So I stayed in Montana, but the school I went to is like 6 hours away. So,
Okay.
so I went there and I studied art, and they had this school happened to have some like a you could have a dance minor.
Oh, cool.
And so that was the first time ever that I tried ballet. There I was like 18 in a
Yeah.
ballet class for the first time ever, and I tried modern dance and tap dance. Yeah.
Very interesting. So you wanted to potentially be a teacher, but you took art as a major.
Hmm.
Did you think you were going to become an art teacher, or what? Why
Yeah.
did you not go into education?
Yeah. I think I I think I just was in such an exploratory kind of mode, like, okay, I'm
Sure.
interested in these things.
Yeah.
And by the end of that year, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with either of these, dance or art. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And so that summer, I had a really interesting summer. Um, as a seeker, I got into so I didn't grow up in a religious home at all, but I was always
Okay.
a seeker about like, well, what's the bigger meaning? And
Yeah.
um, so then I started exploring some of this myself. So that first year of college, I was like, I tried out most of what they had on campus was um, Christian kind of groups. And so I was just
Okay.
like checking it out. And so one of them that summer was this group went down to Aspen, Colorado. And so I went with that group. I had the best job. I was like the luckiest person there. So there we are in Aspen, Colorado, which is like quite a whole different world. But my job that I got was working at for a guy that raised dogs for the Iditarod. And then he raced in the Iditarod too. But in order to support his passion, he created a restaurant.
Okay.
So that restaurant actually made money where his hobby did not. But I got to I was one of the people that took care of the dogs. And then, because he was always trying to find the right combination of dog breeds to really
Yeah.
get that endurance. And so, this was the coolest job. Like, so there were all these dogs there, and I got to, feed them. And then one of the less glorious parts was, of course, cleaning up after them. But
Right.
and then I got to take people on tours through there because in the winters they would take people on sled rides there, and they had people making the real um, the sleds from the Eskimo tradition. It was really cool. Um, so like honestly, that was probably my best job ever.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was way cool. And they asked me if I wanted to stay and become a musher for the winter. And they were like, you'll be the first female musher here. And I think that kind of scared me to like be the first at something. I mean, that's
Okay.
kind of, isn't that funny? Like sometimes we want that, but we don't want that. And
Right.
so I passed on it, but it was such a great experience that summer. And then I took a year off from school. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where it was leading. And so um I tried some different things. I lived in Minneapolis with a friend for a while, got a
Yeah.
job. Then I thought, well, if I'm taking this year off, what do I want to do? What do I want to try? And I decided I wanted to try being a ski instructor. And so that winter, I was a ski instructor and did a variety of other kinds of jobs because, like, honestly, I was making $4 an hour. So it was like, I had to come up with a lot of different jobs, and some of them I created. Like I taught dance classes. Cleaned hotel rooms. I did all kinds of things too to, uh,
Yeah.
just make money. So then after a year of that, then I did go back to school, but I went to a different college. So
Yeah. That time minimum wage was fairly low. I remember uh, I was like, I want to say I was making 375 at the job I was at, which is it was a fast food um, company before Subway came onto the picture. It was we made hot subs, kind of like Jimmy John's or
Okay.
Quiznos, um, and it was a family-owned business. But when I started out, I think I started out at 325, and then by the time I finished uh, high school, I'd made it up to 375. And then I think after going off to college, and I had to work at college because I'd only saved up so much money, I was having to pay for it myself.
Yeah.
I think by the time I got back on a break, I made it to 425. So it was always, and two, like I didn't have the capacity or the at that point in time, the curiosity to try and go and get another job, I just felt that was the only thing that I could do was work in that fast food place. And I was fairly good at it because by the time I was ending high school, they had made me a shift uh, supervisor.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they saw that I was responsible. And so they would allow me to work extra hours, but they wouldn't pay overtime. So they told me I could only work straight time, but I could work as much as I want. And I was like, in my head, I was like, all right, cool. That solves a issue for me having to go and find another job.
Yeah.
But now looking back, it's like that was totally illegal. But yeah, what do you know? You know,
Right.
18-year-old kid, you're just doing whatever. Um, it's interesting that you went from art and dance to going to Colorado, working outdoors in the snow with dogs, with sledding. Then you're moving to Minneapolis to take a year off, start teaching skiing lessons, another winter sport, so to speak. Um, did the art and the creative side of things still follow you throughout those periods of time? Did you still have interest in those things?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I would say that I probably wasn't uh I was still doing some drawing.
Okay.
And then I think part of why then once I, saved up and then went back to college, I think that's part of why I went back into art is because I really missed it. I wasn't
Okay.
doing as much of it on my own as I wanted
Right.
to. And I knew that if I took classes, I would.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And did you, let's see, how was the environment of college in contrast to high school for you in terms
Oh,
of friendship, relationship with teachers, that
yeah.
type of stuff?
Yeah. Um, Similar but different. I realized there's always a part of me that's a bit of a loner. Like I like people, but I
Yeah.
also really like, and I don't know if this is just personality or kind of how I grew up too, but I mean, I did spend a fair amount of time alone.
Right.
And so even in college with all those people around, like I was kind of the weirdo. I didn't drink at all in college. I'd had one experience in high school where I did try drinking, and I was probably, without knowing it, since I'd never drank before, I probably was on the edge of alcohol poisoning. And so I
Yeah.
got so sick. I was like, I had no interest. So I was the weird kid in college, that didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And I was also super broke. So everything I did do was usually I was riding my bike. I would hike. I didn't do anything that cost any money, you
Right.
know. So but I did. I found a handful of people that were similar, but the the closest friendship I developed in college was who's still a good friend to this day, happened my very last semester. I had one more art class to take, and I took it that summer that I graduated. And there was a woman who was auditing classes, and she was, you know, 30 years older than me. And we really connected, and she was from Scotland.
Okay.
Well, then I graduate. We stay in touch. We've never lived in the same town since, and we are pen pals.
Cool.
So maybe I'm kind of an odd duck that way, but yeah, I just, again, it was a lot of nature, a lot of time by myself. I was always working several jobs.
Right.
But yeah,
With that early sensitivity, now understanding that there's labels for that in various forms, um, did you feel being around a group of people was a bit overwhelming?
yeah, like early on, I didn't know the difference. I
Right.
just thought, but over time I started to see like, oh, like I do like people, but too much of it or for too many people, too long of a period of time, too loud, whatever, like it wears on me.
Yeah.
Um,
Same here.
Once I had the contrast, and then now that I've been an entrepreneur and working from home, I'm like, oh my gosh, my nervous system really appreciates it.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times sensitive creatives always have that tendency um, to be, at least for the most part. There's some that are the unique ones that are willing to and ready to engage all the time. Um, I know for myself, I've always been that way. Crowds have always overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
Um, I feel exhausted after I come away from a crowd, um, and then have to recharge. Um,
Yeah.
Now, I know part of that is because I'm an empath, so I'm picking up on energy constantly. And again, now that we have terminology for that or understanding of what that is, it makes all kinds of sense of how I could operate in certain environments and then other environments were super uncomfortable for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and two, I don't I just want to highlight this for you because I don't think you were an oddball. I believe that you are a highly sensitive creative who needed an environment that nourished that. Probably didn't always find that or get that. And I don't think that makes us odd. That just makes us unique.
Yeah.
And that's how I see your story so far, that you're very unique. Um, when you're getting towards the end of school, after you're going through more of wanting to be back in that art environment, are you thinking that once you hit graduation, you're going to probably go into a career as art? Or are you thinking, I want her to be a teacher? Maybe I'll dive into that a little more.
Yeah. By that point, I had a double major in art and PE.
Okay.
So art teaching, I did add the teaching part in there. And it's funny how sometimes other people can tell you something about yourself that you're not seeing. When I went back to school after having that time off, um, I said to my younger brother, I was like, I'm not sure what I want to go into. And he looks at me and he's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, isn't it obvious? Like, of course you like art, and um, why wouldn't you do PE? I was like, really? But he could like he watched me be you know, like to move my body and things and be
Yeah.
interested in health. And I was like, oh, so so yeah, by the end of school, I knew like, yeah, the teacher, that's what I was going to do was the teaching. I just wasn't prepared. Again, sometimes like, the our blind spots.
Yeah.
I knew I liked to teach. I really wasn't thinking about the the institution of school and if
Yeah.
that fit me. It doesn't fit me.
Right. Right. That or even the structure and management of an entire class.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was like, get into those first classroom settings. I'm like, they don't teach you anything about like, and I really didn't have any interest in management either,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. Right.
So my classrooms were always the noisiest, but I didn't care. Like when I'm in there, because I used to go into, just I had art on a cart. So I'd just go into each of the classrooms and I didn't have my own classroom. I just go into the classrooms and but while they're in there and if they're creating and stuff, I didn't care how loud they were. But of course, the next
Everybody
door
else
teacher
did.
did and like.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So with that, art on the cart, I remember that, and that was a fairly autonomous position
Mhm.
to have that. Um, did you find that uh, inspirational in terms of working with the kids and seeing that potentially come out of them as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I was always inspired. Like it kept me. I was always doing art because I was doing stuff with them and we do some warm-up exercise, some little drawing thing that was really fun. I forget the name of that guy. He used to have I used some of his stuff that he did really fun like they could have success like so quickly on a little warm-up kind of thing. And but I was fascinated to see like if I would have kids from at that point, I had fourth, fifth, and sixth graders, and the fourth graders were so into it and were not critical of themselves. Sixth graders comparing themselves, saying they're not creative, like already differentiating, like, oh, that kid's good, but I'm not good or whatever. I'm like, oh,
Right.
somewhere in between there, it just, we lose our um, innocent artist within.
Yeah. Yeah. You lose that curiosity and it becomes comparison.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's a tragedy um, within those environments that I've always seen take place. Um,
yeah,
lose that lose that connection to fun and just doing things because
yeah,
versus okay, now I have to do it for a reason, and if everybody's not enjoying it, I'm not cool with it, or I'm not good at it, so I'm not gonna do it. Those
yeah,
types of things. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a hard part about school that I've
yeah.
always found. Even seeing that with my nephews, um, seeing them transition into different grade levels, it's it's interesting to watch. But I also sit back and I'm like, oh man, wish they didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, for
Wish they didn't
sure.
have to deal with that. How long did you work in that environment of doing the art on a cart uh, type of experience?
I did that for, let's see, so I did that until till I had so I became a stepmom before I had children myself. And then once I had the little ones, I was finding it really hard to be with kids all the time and then still be the kind of parent I wanted to be when I came home to my kids. And so
Right.
then I shifted. I still worked for the school district, but I shifted into they had a really cool grant at the time. They called it an after school enrichment program. And it
Okay.
was for kids that just needed a little extra help.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was in math, maybe it was in reading or something, but it was, we just did it after school. But it wasn't just about the subject. Like I got to create all the enrichment projects and bring in like fly fishermen and different things that the kids got to learn from, and we take field trips and things, but they also got that little bit of extra time to work with that subject, whatever it was that they were just on the cusp of getting.
Yeah.
And so that, yeah, so I got to do that. That was part-time, and that was in the afternoons, and our neighbor watched the little ones, and it worked out so well. Like my stepkids got to come to that program, and they really benefited from that too. But that was that was a fantastic program. And the kids that were in it saw just that's exactly what they needed.
Yeah.
Um, and we did a lot of art in that too. But then after that grant ended, then the job that I got in the school district was PE. So then I was doing PE and then I just did a couple more years of that and I was like, man, I didn't have the bandwidth to say like, yeah, I can really do this school thing
Right.
while raising kids. Well, I was like, I just can't. I felt like I was a fake somehow, and I'm like, so then I left the school district and I kind of started creating more of my own thing. Like I was a yoga teacher and did different movement classes and things like that while the kids were younger. And
Okay.
yeah.
So you went back to a little bit of what some might see as a dance style and environment with the movement,
Yeah.
but more so on a spiritual level.
Hmm.
We're
Hmm.
looking at yoga as being a spiritual practice within its roots.
Yeah.
Um, did you did you decide to go that route from what you may have experienced with that group going out to Colorado in terms of
Mm.
in terms of wanting to be in connection with some kind of higher power?
Yeah. Yeah. What I um the the truth that I was finding within myself around all of that was I was really like once I started to hear more perspectives and more Buddhism and Zen and things like that too, and the more time I spent in nature, the more I once I heard this idea of like oneness and like,
Yeah,
like I was like, oh, wow.
yeah,
Um, so then yoga really hit on it for me, like, oh, I get to move my body, connect with my breath, which the first yoga class I took, I'm like, I haven't been breathing all my life. Like I just have been breathing shallow. Um,
same here. Same. I still
It's
can't
like,
breathe right.
what? Uh,
Uh,
and then to experience this feeling of unity somehow. Yeah, it's like within, unity within, but also around. And I'm like, wow. So it was kind of like almost like movement church or body church or something like that for me.
yeah,
Um, and so it was so fulfilling, but I could still be around people, but it was not taxing. It didn't feel taxing to be around people. We just got together, we did this thing, we didn't even have to talk. We just breathed together. Really, we moved together, we breathed together.
yeah.
Wow. Um, And so that was so satisfying. And I felt like it was also helping me be more of the parent I wanted to be,
Okay.
be more grounded, what really matters, like honestly.
Right.
So, so There's, I don't know, my kids love to create. Oh, there's duct tape all over. Who cares? Really, like who cares? Um, and so that just helped me on so many levels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine. Eh, Another thing that I'm wondering, being in Montana, there is a long history of two stark cultures that are in Montana.
Mhm,
One is cowboy culture,
mhm,
and the other is native culture.
mhm.
With growing up, did you have the opportunity to experience any the side of the native culture around where you were at or that environment?
Yeah, not a whole lot when I was younger, but my mom was very consciously not racist, not
Got
judgmental, not, she was very I don't even know how she learned that or how that if that was just her nature, but she was never that way. So I had that wonderful
it.
uh,
Example.
opportunity. And within that, having grown up in Montana, I was like, once I became a teacher, I thought, there's a whole lot I haven't experienced. I want to experience this. So, the second teaching job I had was on a reservation,
Okay.
and that was amazing. I got to go into a sweat lodge too, and the kids were, uh, I tell you what, so I taught health and PE there.
Yeah.
And and it was high school. And so some of the topics, we'd get into,
Yeah.
um, I just loved being able to, I remember going to my principal and saying, okay, we're getting into the sexuality, portion of this. Is there anything? Because at that point in time, some schools were really dictating what you could and couldn't say.
Yeah.
And I said, is there anything that I'm not supposed to cover? And he said, tell the kids what you think they need to know. And he said, I'll back you.
Okay.
And so they would come to class and we'd be able to just have discussions, which was amazing. And but there's a lot of it was so eye-opening for me about the amount of tragedy that
Yeah.
um these kids would see on a day-to-day basis. And yet the resilience was amazing. The
Yeah.
fact that they would show up at school when that couldn't have been the highest thing on their, when there's so much going on around them, that couldn't have been the highest thing on their list, but there they were.
Yeah.
They would show up. Um, the sense of humor is amazing. Um, the and also the sense of community. So if somebody, I didn't realize until I lived on the reservation that not everybody was related. The way the kids would describe it is like, oh, auntie or grandma or whatever. Then you
Yeah.
find out they're not all related. They just call each other, they call them auntie and they call them,
Yeah.
but they take care of each other.
Yeah.
And so there was that was really beautiful to see.
I can imagine that the spirituality elements of native culture have always been something that has been, I would say, just ingrained in me,
Mhm.
um, for whatever reason. Whether it's, I know growing up, our family being from East Tennessee, you have Smoky Mountains, Gatlinburg, and Smoky Mountains in that area. And just over the Smoky Mountains is Cherokee, North Carolina. So once you cross over the mountain, you're right into a reservation. And from my time I was a kid, we've always been told that that was part of our heritage, but that's what it was. But we didn't have any way of being able to prove it in terms of documentation or anything
Yeah.
like that. But I've always felt that sense inside of me that that was the true way to feel about everything around you, was that it was connected, to respect it, to see others from that type of perspective, to see community from that perspective, that the elders, you needed to respect the elders, needed to show reverence to that, in a sense. Even though in the other side of it, I grew up as well in a uh, Christian family, but more so towards from fourth grade on, I was kind of ingrained in that Baptist, fundamental Baptist community. And there was a lot of things that I saw within the elders that wasn't up to par. So I didn't have as much respect as I was told I should have had, for that. But the native community, I've always had that sense of being able to uh, realize how that way of thinking, that way of living, um, that way of spirituality is tied in, has played out in a lot of what I do and how I interact today. It's also an interesting thing from the perspective of knowing how those two cultures often butted heads in Wyoming. But yet, your mom didn't have that mentality.
No.
And then you get the opportunity to go and teach in that environment as well. And you had enough conscious um, thought to go to the heads of the school and say, hey, is there any boundaries here that I need to make sure I'm aware of?
Yeah.
Which I think is a sense of respect as well, of not looking like everybody that's on the reservation.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that they said to you whatever you feel is necessary to convey,
Yeah.
it was almost a reverse mutual respect of knowing this is a heart that is truly invested, and we see that. And I don't know if that was necessarily highlighted when you experienced that, but that's how I'm seeing it in this storyline. With seeing those kids who experience things on a completely different level, because reservation life is completely different from what most of us experience in everyday life. And you mentioned the resiliency that was there, from day to day, to still show up, to still come in. Were you able to see any particular individuals that were like, oh, I need to nurture this a little bit more. I need to I need to show a little bit more attention to this, encourage this one a little bit more. Any of those sparks of creative ingenuity that would pop up, or just something that maybe they were good at, that you said, I need to make sure they know this.
Yeah, I think, in general, it was partly just like really letting them know a lot of the kids who had experienced, white people coming to teach on the reservation, the motivation was that they were there to change them. And I think just having a daily attitude of like, hey, I'm not here to change you. You know, I am I'm just here to tell you about this subject, and but more than that, I'm here to greet you every day and say I'm glad you're here. I'm here to see you. I'm here to let you know that I see you. I value you.
Yeah,
I hear you. I mean, I think that's what, at the end of the day, that's what we all want.
for sure.
And so I really felt like that was my job. That was my job, period. Um, just like when I went back into teaching after COVID, right after COVID hit, and the first time back into school, I did a long-term sub job where everybody was in masks. Nobody knew what was going on. Here were all these
Yeah.
high school kids, like not knowing what's going on in the world. And I just
Yeah.
figured my job right now is to create a safe little haven for them. When they walk into this art room, hey, I'm glad you're here. Good to see you. You know, let's just make this as comfortable as we can. So really just kind of remembering how simple it is sometimes, of the
Yeah.
basic needs that we all have. And we all just want to be respected.
For sure.
And sometimes we forget how to do that, but it's not rocket science, is it?
No, it's not. And that's the thing. It's so easily forgotten and so quickly forgotten. Um, but it's the key. If we could just keep that at the forefront of our mind, I think it would be a whole lot easier
Yeah,
every day for everybody.
yeah.
Did you still continue teaching throughout pretty much your entire career in terms of whether it be art or PE or any of those type? Did you just kind of stay in that field of creativity?
Yeah, yeah. When I was in the school system, I stayed in those areas. And then with adults, I've taught art too, and exercise classes and dance and yoga. And even now as an entrepreneur, I teach things through like workshops, and the through line is always creativity. I just think that that is the highest expression of when we think about like self-actualization or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I think it has to do with creativity.
for sure, for sure. Once you had the taste of that first entrepreneurial experience with the yoga studio and the movement uh, teaching, did that let you realize that you definitely didn't want to be in working for somebody else in terms of business?
Yeah, yeah. Although I missed a steady paycheck because you never know what it's going to be, as an entrepreneur. The the sky's the limit.
Yeah,
The only thing I was limited by was myself. Really, when you get down to it, like the hours that I worked or the number of hours I put in or how I went about it or that was up to me, and that was both exciting and scary.
yeah. I think that's every creative's journey, whether it's working for somebody or working for yourself as a freelancer or just an individual. It's always that fine line of when the money's going to be consistent and stay consistent to when it may not be, when it dries up, um, when things get hard with the economy. The creative stuff is usually one of the first things that gets put to the side. We're not spending as much money or time on that. Um, but creatively, it does so much for so many people
Yeah.
and can do so much for so many people that it's always, from my perspective, a thing that has always been there. I've had to do it.
Yeah.
Like I've tried at different intervals to just go and work for somebody else, and it just always ends up coming back to me going back to doing my thing.
Yeah.
I I can work for people, but after a while, I just get tired of it. It's I don't have the freedom that I want, truly want, um, and a lot of times not working or doing something where you feel valued enough to keep moving forward with it. And that's been most of my experiences with the other jobs that I've worked outside of creative, my own businesses. Um, I could excel at them, but the value equation didn't come into play.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's like, I'm not, I can't stay in this. If I can't, if you can't see my value, I can't stay and keep giving you and giving you and giving you
Yeah.
the things that I know you need to succeed as a business. Um, I can't keep pouring into that.
Yeah.
It's that whole scenario of you can't fill somebody up on an empty cup, right? And
Yeah.
when that's getting drained out of you, you just eventually have to just move and go somewhere else and do something different.
Yeah. That
With
exchange, that like
yeah,
reciprocity of whatever it is, whether it's with the, yeah, but like what you say, value and meaning and yeah.
yeah, I think there's so many individuals, especially in the creative world, that have to walk that roller coaster throughout life of the highs, the lows, the turns, the spins, the loops,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff that comes into play. Uh, it a lot of times is difficult to navigate, and that's part of what this podcast is all about. It's showing that there are different options available from the guests that have different experiences of saying, hey, maybe this connects with you. Maybe you realize something here is an opportunity for you to step into something. Somebody might be like, you know what, I really do love running. I think I'm gonna be like Aimee and start running. Those kind of things. Or I'm gonna go start a yoga studio. I'm gonna go to a reservation and teach those types of things. With what you've stepped into now, coming out of those experience of COVID and being in that part-time teaching mode again, um, did you realize once more that that really wasn't the freedom of space that you needed, and you needed to step into something new?
Yeah. I had right before COVID, I was doing working with the other, the health side of things at our local health department. Um and then COVID hit and I had known after my yoga studio, I was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur again. I just knew it.
Yeah.
And like for me, COVID was like my opportunity to step out of what I was out of a norm, whatever the
Yeah.
norm was. I'm like, oh, everything's gone, tipped on its side anyway. Now's as good of a time as any, to get back into entrepreneurship. But I didn't understand. I hadn't done anything online.
Okay.
And so once I quit that job, I was like, oh, I need a little bit of time to figure out the whole online thing. So that's when I did the long-term art teaching sub position.
Uh-huh.
And then and that readied me in so many ways. I was like, well, I mean, I knew they asked me to stay on. Oh, why don't you keep teaching? I'm like, nope, I signed up for this semester. Happy to do that for you. Now it's time for me to move on to this other thing. I just knew it. So
Right.
even though it was scary doing the entrepreneur thing, but yeah, all of that just really helped me solidify I am an entrepreneur. Everything that's come before this has been great. I'm glad I had all that experience. And in my heart, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with doing what you're doing now, focusing on women who are uh, your age or in that second stage of adulthood, what is the what is the main concept that you're trying to put out there for them?
Yeah. Um, it's a great time. It's a great time. Just any of the questions that are coming up, that's fantastic. You feel like you're at a crossroads. Fantastic. You scared about what's next? Great. These are all invitations. Like,
Yeah.
um, when we somehow have come up against some like end of the line or status quo or empty nest or whatever form it comes in for somebody, it's like to me the clouds part. And you have this gift of saying, I'm going to look at life in a new way. I'm
Right.
not going to say life is over. Like to me, and I think this is part of what you do too, Rich, is like let people know, like permission to be.
Yeah.
It's never too late.
Right.
Um, be your full self. If you're not sure who that is, explore it. You'll never, you'll never regret it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll more than likely get to a place of newly understanding
Yeah,
possibly who you are.
yeah,
And the potential at that point is just untapped.
absolutely. I believe in that so much. Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like people often feel like they're going through something alone.
Yeah.
And so it's just creating that space of like, yeah, you're not alone. Like here's a bunch of us. We're going through the same stuff or feeling the same things. It's a safe space. Uh, come and explore. Find out who you are. Let it be a practice space. You want to start believing differently. You want to change your mindset. You want to um, express yourself differently. Try it in this safe space before you take it out there?
Right. Right. That's a huge thing, I think, is providing that safe space for people to expand and holding that space. Again, I'm tracking different things across your timeline, but I'm seeing that with you working with the kids on the reservation, providing a space for them to just be encouraged that they just showed up to begin with at the beginning of the day, right?
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic, and offering that to individuals who are just seeking a new understanding of themselves. Um, One of the things that I've kind of had my eye on this whole time as we're doing this interview is you have this book on your shelf behind you that's about color and meaning.
Yeah.
And I understand what that book is about. But could you give a little bit of insight into how that book maybe plays into what you're doing currently?
Yeah. Thanks for that. So as an artist, I've always loved color. Um, and from a psychological point of view too, like what does it represent? And as you know, like through branding, like what kind of feel.
Yeah.
Um, and so one of the ways that I use that whole idea in what I do now is like when people, so I've got this free book club too that people can just come to. And one of the things, like right now, we're studying the book Tiny Habits. And so, it's just about like making a small shift that could have big impact in your life. One of the things I like to do is a color cue. So
Okay.
if there's something that I'm trying to shift in my life, I like to pair it with a color. So um, whether it's like something as simple as like I wanted to drink more water. So I want a colorful jug
Yeah.
because it catches my attention. So that was one thing that I did to help me drink more water. For a while, like when I first started my business, I was not stepping into really the role of being a CEO, whatever that means. But like, it was kind of like, okay, you got to be the boss, Amy. Nobody else is
Right.
of this business. And I'd gotten this visual kind of cue of like me in like pink pants. And I was like, I don't wear pink pants. What is that? But that was some symbol. And so I was like, I went to the thrift store, I found some pink pants, and I was like, whenever I really need to feel like the boss, step into the boss, I'm going to wear these pink pants because it cracks me up, number one, because it's
Yeah.
my norm. And number two, it's my color cue. Whenever I look at those pants, I'm remembering that I'm the CEO.
Okay.
And so just, I mean, it's like, it can be such a fun way to create a shift. It can be a fun way to change our environment, with the color. It can be a fun way to if somebody's trying to change their eating habits, like get a plate that you love the color of it or something. Like
Yeah.
there's so many fun ways to use color. It's endless and I love it.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is as you're saying this too, I'm going back to part of your beginning story where you were talking about your grandmother making her own clothes and coming dressed out one day in all purple,
Yeah.
and what the meaning of purple is in terms of color and how it plays out. Purple is a symbol and a color of royalty.
Mhm.
And so it was very interesting for me to hear you say that about your grandma, and that she had this creative, fashionable flair about her. And you described her wearing all purple. And I was like, okay. That royalty within the family getting shown to you early on
Yeah.
that you can be as royal as you want to be.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of taking it and wearing it,
Yeah.
which I think is very powerful too. In what you're saying about putting on those pink pants, you got to step into that position, right? And that's that reminder too. Oh, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
I have to run this whole thing. I have to manage this whole thing. Um, I know it plays a huge role in every creative's journey, but I don't think it's always looked at from the perspective of meaning and what colors can represent, the feeling of color, the vibration of color, the energy of color. I think it's a huge part of deeper understanding of what we're creating once we start applying color to it. Another contrast to that, which is an interesting storyline as well from what we've talked about, was harkening back to the Guess ads and how those were always just black and white. The only spot of color that would come out in any of that was always the Guess jeans logo,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
red triangle,
Mhm.
right? But how powerful those ads were in just black and white.
Yeah.
And then the reminder of the red logo. This is Guess.
Yeah.
This is
Brilliant, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So from a branding standpoint, the contrast, the amazing contrast, because that's literally what those photographs represented in just black and white. They were so drastic, so compelling. Um, but then you had that little splotch of color that reminded you why that these were created the way they were.
Yeah. And of course, the red goes so well with the black and white, right?
Yep. Yep. Plays off of it so well.
Yeah.
The two other things that are eye catching about what you have behind you is you have these two words at the top of your bookshelf
Yeah.
of create and believe.
Mhm.
What do those two words mean for you as you step into each new day?
Mm.
as reminders.
You ask such good questions, Rich.
I try. You know what it is? It's being on the other side of the spectrum of being in therapy for so many years and having to answer these questions.
Yeah, yeah. But you're like so in the moment with your questions, how they flow, and like you're really intuitive with that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So create reminds me that I'm empowered. Like I create my day.
Yeah.
I do. Even if somebody else has dictated some of my schedule, I still create my day. I create my thoughts. I create my reactions. I create my beliefs. And so that word belief, to me, it's really, or believe, it's like if, again, I get to choose what I believe. I get to choose whether I am a victim of something, how I'm going to categorize at the end of each day, what files I put about my day. If I say that was a bad day or oh, I learned something today. That's all again within my power. And my beliefs, like I feel like both of those words have been my life's work, creating and shaping my beliefs. I don't want
Yeah.
to just live with one set of beliefs um, that I feel like can never be molded at all.
Right.
I want to evolve. I want to grow. I want to continue to unfold. I want to learn. And so, um, whatever I believed when I was younger, or even yesterday,
Right.
can definitely be shifted and all for my benefit.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. There's another thing that stood out to me that I found interesting as I was introducing you to the audience. Um, and that comes from your holistic mind body approach. One of the things that you integrate is performance psychology. Now, from a personal standpoint, I understand the dynamics of how psychology is used to help an individual heal or get to an understanding and place of healing.
Mhm.
When we're talking about performance psychology, and you have an experience of this that started early on in terms of you taking on running as something that helped you process things. When you have to integrate performance psychology into a holistic mind body approach, how do you meld those two together?
That's a really good question. And I'm glad you brought that up too about the performance psychology because I think the way, like the way I view it might be different than what, like
Sure.
how they describe it. But for me, part of what part of my own healing journey has been like moving out of some of that performing for about how we should, what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So, the way I view the performance psychology is like, first of all, finding out more about yourself. So you're not performing for anyone outside of you,
Yeah.
but you're navigating this life from your most authentic way, so that you can still like be involved in the world without, you don't have to go live in a cave,
Right.
but that you are connecting with your authentic description of so yeah, I might have to just change that word sometime, like because I still have a lot of ties to what my old ideas of performance was.
Sure.
I mean, when I think of that word. So that's just a little bit about how I kind of work with that idea and what I like to get people to inquire about. And the way I do that is through a really holistic way.
Yeah.
Um, and so one of my favorite, I think one of the things that I'm good at that I'm finally starting to recognize is like, oh, that, that, okay, maybe that's one of my specialties is since I'm kind of kinesthetic, I feel like I can help people access their what's going on in their bodies more
Yes.
or how to embody. So like just before we got on here, I was working with a group that I work with, and we were talking about like their next what kind of so kind of the performance idea, but their goals, their
Right.
own personal kind of aspirations for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
Um, and how to connect with that in a way that they are not just thinking about what they're going to do, but they can bring emotion to it and then they can also sense it in their bodies so that they're holistically connected to their performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can see that. And I already had a sense, even asking that question, that it was not a traditional way of looking at performance and psychology together and how that plays out, which there's a component of that that plays out in everyday business performance psychology, what you need to exceed and excel in business, doing this and that. The reason I wanted to bring that up is, again, going back through your storyline, back to when you had the opportunity as a fifth grader to write that play and was encouraged to do so.
Yeah.
Because what that entails, it entails a person having to take on a role and to perform based around that role. And I think if it helps you even with using those two words in a different approach and a different light that feels more in tune with who you are,
Mhm.
if you were to explain it from that perspective of you writing that play and then moving into theater as you were a little bit older, you take on these personas in life
Yeah.
to either get through, get by, cope,
Yeah.
navigate, all of these different things. And it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it is a bad thing because we take on something that we're just not being true to ourselves. Sometimes we take on stuff to get through hurts and traumas and we react a certain way or act a certain way to kind of mask that over. But those are just coping mechanisms in those aspects of relationship to performance. But if you're looking at this new phase of life and this new self discovery of being a female and in this particular stage where you want to step into something new, you have the opportunity to take on a performative role, so to speak, and embodying this new self,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I think that would be a way, and I give that freely if you
I
feel
like
that
that.
that helps.
Yeah.
Um, to just a new way of reframing how that word is used. Because
Yeah.
I've even done that myself over the last week in terms of reframing what the word recovery means for artist recovery.
Yeah.
And there's a common instant mental thought process when somebody hears the word recovery. And it seems to always go in the direction of a substance uh, transition coming out of substance abuse, different things like that. But the way that I want to reframe it and redefine it as renewal, resilience, and creative transformation. Because
Mm,
essentially, if you look at it and you break it down to its root word, which is recover, it's just a matter of how fast you bounce back from something.
yeah.
So even if you stumble and fell, or if you tripped while you're out running,
Yeah.
the how fast you get back up and continue running,
Yeah.
that's a recovery.
Yeah.
That's you recovering. Or even with what you're doing with women at this particular point in stage in their life, they may be reclaiming something or stepping into something new. They're just recovering something that was covered up in the first place
Yeah. Yeah.
and stepping into something that's going to be renewal for them, recognition of the resilience of getting this far, and now a new creative transformation that's going to take place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I love that. I love how you wove all that together.
thank you. That was just off the dome.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is how your mind works. Like this is how,
Yeah, yeah,
and I think words do matter, like
for sure.
because like you say, we have sometimes it's our own thought connection going on with what that word means, or we're
Right,
also picking up on the collective, like, oh, the collective views it this way. Oh, but
right.
that's not what I meant, like sometimes, right?
Exactly, exactly. That's probably one of my biggest frustrations in current day society is the fact that people have taken words that have meant one thing for so many years, and now they've put an attachment of a new meaning to a word. And it's like, what are you trying to do?
Right.
I don't understand it. It's confusing. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't even a lot of times line up with the way that they're using this word that's been around for ages, but
Yeah.
now we're using it in this way
Yeah.
and then this new way of description. And a lot of times I find myself in conversation having to just ask, what does that word mean for you? Because I'm not quite understanding how you're using it
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, appropriation of words from what they originally have been created for, I find that is a difficult thing in current society and times that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, they're powerful to begin with. So changing them almost seems to be taking away some of that original power.
Yeah. And I think like you were saying too, especially from like your point of view of what you've worked with branding and
Yeah,
companies like that and what they want to get across, like you just don't lightly change something
no,
or expect that all of a sudden everybody's going to know that, well, like this is the new color. Now we're going to start on bank logos, we're going to start using pink or something. It's like, no, that
yeah,
it doesn't work that way.
no, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. Um, and two, it's a different. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of the creative arts over the years had been removed from the school systems. So these newer generations that are coming up and learning different things, they don't have those opportunities always for those expressive environments to learn certain things in.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem to catch on in ways that's very easy. a clear way of kind of getting this example out from my perspective um, is Liquid Death, the water
Okay.
company.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I understand the creative concept of putting water in a can and trying to pitch it in a way that seems easily comfortable for the consumer because you've got pop in cans, you have beer in cans, different scenarios like that, right? Where I get confused, and I feel that there's a point of possible shift in energy of what water truly is.
Yeah.
Because I know from the native community, water is life. So for it to be branded as water is death seemed very confusing to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And me personally, I will never buy a can of liquid death
Yeah.
because of that fact.
Yeah.
Now, there's there's enough people out there, and it's gained enough popularity at this point in time where it's okay. They can do without my money. But from a branding standpoint, I think there's something that's missing there.
Yeah.
Now, there is an element of where they're saying, quenching your thirst, part of their tagline. Um, and I'm not saying it exactly the way that they have it laid out, but again, just that simple dichotomy of liquid death being water, supposed to be something that nutrition revives you, versus water is life.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a
Yeah.
confusion that takes place there.
And one
Which,
feels heavy and the other feels light. Like
yeah,
water is life. Like that just lifts me up, and water is death. I'm like, oh, that feels heavy.
right?
And contrary, just
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But again, those are the things that creatives in the world we have to navigate. And sometimes those decision makers step into that environment and granted they have a phenomenal way of branding and a very creative way of branding and the way that they decorate their cans, different special editions and stuff like that. And it's become huge as a product. But I always feel that there's a line that needs to stay in place when you're putting something out like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not the biggest fan, but I understand what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally understand what they're doing. I'm just not the biggest fan.
Yeah.
Um, what you've created with SheForce, can you just expound a little bit on those two words?
Yeah. It came to me a few years ago, and when it did, I was like, okay, there's something there. And partly it was for me to like when I hear that or say she force, it kind of reminds me, kind of like the pink pants when I was trying to step into the CEO. It was like, oh yeah, like I get again, kind of like I get to be the creator. And from a point of view, like not like pushing or forcing, but like a force of nature. Like and so I know that part of that was like just for me to receive that as um as just a reminder, And then the other part is that I knew like in creating a business, um, and nothing wrong with it, like some people call their business their name, totally
Yeah,
fine. I just knew that for me that wasn't the deal. Like it wasn't the Aimee Carlson thing.
yeah, yeah.
And so this was like, ooh, that feels like an interesting kind of umbrella. and I didn't even know what all was going to come underneath the umbrella, but that felt like it had some kind of gravity to it or some kind of empowerment or
For sure.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Fantastic. Did you also see it as a reminder for you, a reminder for you to step into your own SheForce?
Yeah, exactly. It like that was step number one. And it still is. Like there's still a lot of times that I look at those words or I say those words out loud and I'm like, I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I think that's a perfect place for us to be able to close out today. One of the things that I always want to remind the audience at the end of each one of these episodes is to always to listen to your heart, but be kind to your mind.
That's beautiful.